So today I'll be going over the best heroes in Overwatch Competitive Season 10, at least from what we can kind of squander from the previous season, along with the new buffs coming into the game. I'm going to be trying to put all that together and talking to you guys about, what's the meta probably going to be, how are the stats working out right now, and how will those kind of change with the new changes coming up. Now, as far as the PTR changes, I think they are somewhat big, especially the Hanzo changes and, BRIGITTE being added to the game. But other than that, honestly, the meta is probably going to stay pretty similar. This is kind of how it's been. At the beginning of every new season, it almost 100% mirrors the last season, because even if there is a new technical pro meta, not everybody's, used to that yet, and not everybody's playing that. So I'll try to tell you guys today who are the best heroes in competitive right now, and I'll be talking about all ranks, so this includes, bronze to grandmaster. But I'll talk about certain, special heroes that I think especially do well in grandmaster, or especially do well in lower ranks when we get to those. With all that said though, guys, let's get started. So first off, I wanted to quickly talk about BRIGITTE, and she is, of course, a new hero being added to the game. I hear a lot of my GM friends saying she's going to be extremely powerful, but we don't have any exact stats for her, so, I can't tell you exactly how well she's been playing. In last season, we only have quick play stats, which are almost useless, so I'm not going to be talking about those at all. This is mainly going to be theory crafting. And as far as what we've seen mainly with BRIGITTE, is anti-dive, of course, which works relatively well, but as well we've been seeing a lot of triple support and triple tank, but only on certain maps. You can really only play BRIGITTE triple support and triple tank on maps that are very small, very closed in, that are just overall hard to snipe you on, and that has been working in a decent amount of pro games, and that has been a decent strategy. However, I'm gonna say that that is not going to be the meta at all. One, because nobody really plays support or tank, so how are you ever going to get 6 of those in one team? But as well, because they only fit on a few exact maps, and sometimes these comps are even beaten out by spam comps, so they're, it's probably not going to be a super overpowered comp with BRIGITTE. Other than that, we have been seeing her just a decent amount playing in the front line with REINHARDT, with Winston, and I think that's really where she's going to work. A regular 2-2-2, probably with Mora, because she can, kind of make up for the healing that BRIGITTE doesn't really have sometimes. But as well, Mercy, that works out pretty well. I think she's overall going to be a hero that can play in most maps, going to suffer in some of those really big, new, open maps. But other than that, she's probably going to be overall a pretty strong pick in the new season, but not that overpowered, at least, I guess, depending on the map. Now, moving on to the top 2 best heroes as far as win rates go, we have, as always, ZENYATTA and Torbjorn. Both these heroes, again, as always, with only less than 1% play rate in competitive, and, as always, only really picked up on defense or by one-tricks playing these heroes. Respectively, they do, again, as always, have amazing win rates, but it is, kind of tricky because they're really only played where they are the best. They aren't really played that much, so they only have people that are very good on them playing these heroes. And overall, yes, you can pick them up, and if you want to be a one-trick as them, it can be a good idea. Or if you want to just really get a, random, extremely cheese hold on your second defense, that can be good too. But I wouldn't, again, say that they're going to be meta at all. And with a ZENYATTA rework coming up so soon, I wouldn't put in way too much time on her. Now to Zen, he's been a good meta support for a while now, can work with triple DPS, can work with triple support, can work with dive, can work with spam, can work with somewhat with death ball, can work with really whatever meta comes his way, and overall, he's just been a strong pick that if you want to pick as a main support, probably is one of the best ones to pick in the game. Now, back to the triple tank and triple support meta, Zen and BRIGITTE both do a decent amount of healing, but really can't do way too much. So you want to play those two, then again with someone like a Mercy or somebody like a Mora supplying the main amount of healing. Both these do off healing, both these do a decent amount of damage, and overall the comp can be pretty hard to get through. There's a lot of health going around, there's a lot of tankiness going around, and while some tank busters can, again, kind of abuse this comp, in small maps, again, I think Zen is going to be doing really well with that. Overall, I think Zen's going to be a strong pick, and you can probably just keep playing him if you've been playing him for quite a while so far. Orisa is weird because I always think that she is much weaker than she is, but when you look at the stats, she's played a decent amount of time, about as much as PHARAH, so not way too much, not way too little, but has a great win rate. And even though we don't play nearly as much spam as we used to, she's still good. And I think even when you're playing with the triple tank, she still can supply some help to that. As we saw, you know, at the very end of the last triple tank meta, she still can do a decent amount of damage. She still can block a decent amount of the enemy DPS going after you, and can actually open up some space so that your tanks can move up if you need to do that, which is kind of nice. Now, as far as all the DPS go right now, she works pretty well with them as well. She, you know, puts the shield, spams around corners, provides space for them, and that's kind of it. Overall, there's no big changes that are going to make her better or worse, and I think she's going to stay as one of the stronger picks for a while as well. Now, to D.Va, she did get a somewhat substantial nerf in the last patch, but yeah, she's still the most played hero in the game right now. I guess kind of tied with Moira depending on the week, but also one of the highest win rate heroes in the game right now. She has been good for a long time, and I think she will continue to be good for a long time because none of the changes are really that bad for her at all, and I think she works actually quite well with Brigitte because she can allow for her to safely get in or safely get out of a fight by using the defense matrix. She can finish up kills that Brigitte get pretty low because she has a good amount of engage, and overall being able to just dive in with the Brigitte or being able to death ball is something that D.Va can do as well. Overall, D.Va's a lot like the other characters at the top of this list. She can just kind of work with whatever meta's thrown at her, with whatever team comp is thrown at her, and one thing you have to remember about competitive is that a lot of the times you won't get the meta comps. Whatever is meta right now, you might not get. But with someone like D.Va, you can work no matter what. You can play offensively, you can play defensively, and even though she does a bit less damage now, and I guess we'll charge her ultimate a little bit shorter now, or a little bit longer now, and even though she doesn't really burst quite as much, I mean, in general, the way that her kid's been playing is going to be just about exactly the same, and there's no new meta just going to completely shove her out, at least from what I've been seeing. REINHARDT is a pick that I think is honestly going to become a lot better now with Brigitte, as a lot of people have been guessing, but also a lot harder to play, because if the enemy team has a Brigitte, well, it's going to be difficult for you to play around that because, I mean, you can take it on your shield, people can then just, you know, hammer down on you or do a lot of other combos on you, and it's going to be kind of hard. But Brigitte really allows for a lot of extra space for you to use as REINHARDT, and she also allows for extra armor, she also allows for more engage, she also allows for more crowd control, and overall she just kind of assists you in what you're already doing as REINHARDT. Overall, I think, yeah, pushing him to becoming a better character. Now, other than Brigitte, and I guess the triple tank, triple support comp, which has been working especially well with REINHARDT, and especially well on really small maps again, where REINHARDT has always been good, I think that the fact that Tracer got nerfed is going to also make him a decent amount better, because while Tracer has never been like the 100% REINHARDT killer in competitive, even though she has definitely been in esports, she definitely is still a problem, and REINHARDT's been one of those targets that is just way too easy to hit with the pulse bomb, and when it did 400 damage, she could just shoot you with one clip, pulse bomb you, and you were dead as REINHARDT, and that really sucked. But now that only does 300 damage, and now that your Brigitte can also add on 75 armor before it even hits you, I think REINHARDT is going to become a much more stable pick. I kind of wish that maybe they'd add some anti-crowd control effects to REINHARDT to make so that he'd be a little less easy to just push around. But other than that, I think he is going to show up a decent amount more. Probably not the best tank in the game, but definitely a lot better than what he used to be. And you can already see right now, he's still actually a pretty good tank in competitive. Maybe not in esports, but definitely in competitive. So JUNKRAT did get a nerf, like a few of these other characters. But like them, I don't think it's going to be completely game-changing. Especially, again, if we have a, somewhat tank meta showing up with a lot of supports. Well, JUNKRAT actually plays very well around that. JUNKRAT has always been a good tank buster, and, yeah, if that shows up, I mean, he's still going to be played quite a bit, so don't worry way too much about that. But if that isn't the case, well, he's still going to be quite good. Even though we don't really have as much of a spam meta anymore, even though you don't always see Orisa and ROADHOG and all those characters, JUNKRAT has still been able to keep his spot as one of the top DPS in the game, and I think that's really impressive. Overall, JUNKRAT just has a good amount of damage, and while it has been nerfed somewhat, over time, it's still very good. He has a good amount of consistency, even though he's kind of like a spammy character, he has a lot of that, and he still has one of the best ults in the entire game as far as getting picks, and even though that was slightly nerfed, I think it's still going to be an extremely strong part of his kit, especially if there's a lot of tanks which can't really kill it way too easily. That's going to kind of help him as well. Overall, I think JUNKRAT, again, like a lot of these other characters, is going to continue to be extremely strong, and if you want to pick him up, even after these nerfs, I don't think it's going to hurt him way too bad. Moving on to Moira, she is one of the strongest supports in the game right now. A ton of people have been playing her. Technically speaking, she is the most played support in the game, and even though I guess she isn't as strong technically in high elo, she's like a little bit weaker, she still is a very strong pick just about everywhere. She supplies an enormous amount of heals, works with an enormous amount of team comps, and yeah, she's overall a strong pick right now. And I think especially with Brigitte, she's going to become even stronger because Brigitte, again, can't really supply way too many heals. She's kind of like Lucio, where she supplies crowd control. Well, I guess Lucio doesn't do that. He supplies a speed boost, but, you know, you can kind of compare those two. And with both those characters, you want someone with a lot of heals, or I guess a dive, but you want someone generally with a lot of heals in a regularly competitive game. So, I mean, picking up Brigitte with Moira allows for a lot of heals, it allows for a lot of crowd control, it just allows for, really, again, I guess the Moira to be impossible to dive as well, because Brigitte just throws the armor on Moira, she has the healing orb, she has her shift, she has everything. That's going to be really annoying to deal with. And I think overall, Moira is going to continue to be an extremely strong player in this meta. And maybe a few of the Moira players will move on to Brigitte, but other than that, I think there's going to be a ton of people still playing her, and I think she honestly might even get a little bit stronger, especially if we see like a triple tank, triple support. I mean, she can be ridiculous there, put an ungodly amount of healing on the table. So yeah, I mean, if you hated seeing her, I'm sorry, there's going to be a little bit more. Moving on to Mercy, she's also still one of the most played heroes in the entire game. I know that there's been a lot of Mercy mains that have moved on to Moira, but now it's almost equal, the amount of play with both these characters, and their win rates are almost, as well, equal. Both of them supply a lot of healing, both of them are very consistent, Mercy maybe being a little bit more consistent, but both being just plain out good supports, and both of them work really well with Brigitte. Nothing really special is happening to Mercy though, so I think she's just going to stay pretty good. Maybe Brigitte might pass her up if she does turn out to be a really great hero, but other than that, I think she's just going to kind of stay where she is. Lucio is hard to guess about and hard to talk about because he has been doing actually quite well in high elo lately, and we have been seeing a lot of dive comp actually kind of coming back and playing well. But with Brigitte, it's awkward to say because you can actually get a decent dive with those two. You can get on targets, kill people really quickly. On defense, it's hard to say that you can do that well as them, but especially on offense, there is a lot you can do. But I'm kind of wondering if in a lot of cases, Brigitte will kind of take Lucio's spot. But it's kind of hard to say that because, I mean, they both play the off support slot, but they supply such different things. Lucio allows for your tanks to get in there and allows for your tank busters like Reaper and Doomfist and all those characters to get in there, to get in close range, and to get their damage out. While Brigitte really helps people when they're already in there. So, I mean, they work really well together in that sense, but they don't supply that much healing, and I think that's kind of where the third support comes in, where they can supply the healing while these two supply a lot of crowd control and a little bit of healing as well with a little bit of damage. Now again, I think we could possibly see 3 supports. We probably won't see it almost ever in our actual competitive games, but I think even just playing Lucio and Brigitte, especially on offense, could be a valuable strategy. Other than that, you know, Lucio's just, you know, going to continue to be a somewhat good healer by himself. Reaper just got a buff, you know, last patch, and it was pretty good. They made so that now he can cancel his Wraith form, but it didn't really make him that much stronger. I mean, he's a little stronger, his win rate has upped a little bit, especially in high elo, it's gone up a decent amount, but especially in low elo, he's actually just pretty much stayed exactly where he's been. So, I mean, there's that as far as his, you know, new, you know, somewhat rework, somewhat buff came out. But I think he's still going to be a somewhat decent character. Again, like Junkrat, he is kind of a tank buster, so if that shows up, he's ready to deal with it. On a lot of the new, more open maps, he does struggle a lot, so I think Reaper is one of those characters that is very map dependent. But adding on Brigitte to Reaper, I think, actually is another good thing, because when you put Reaper into teamfight with Brigitte's armor on him, you know, the ulting armor, plus Brigitte actually just throwing the armor onto him, plus Brigitte putting a stun onto somebody, which then Reaper can walk up and shoot them in the face, I think that is a extremely strong combo. The rest of the meta, I think, is going to stay pretty similar as well, and with the potential of more tanks, I think we also have the potential of a little bit more Reaper. Moving on to Doomfist, for quite a while, he was doing not good at all. He was doing awful, one of the worst characters in the game. And still at the very bottom elos, he's not doing that well. But on average, as you can see, he's doing alright. A decent amount of players are starting to pick him up, so he's not one of the least played characters in the game anymore. He can deal a good amount of burst, he has a better amount of consistency than he used to have, and overall he's fitting into the, you know, meta that has been playing out, which I guess right now is pretty healthy. As you see, we've been seeing a lot of different characters and a lot of different team comps, And even if we do, again, get into like a triple tank comp, I think he can do a little bit by killing off some of the supports that some of the other flankers might have more trouble with, especially, you know, comparing him to Genji. But at the same time, flankers are never really that great in those metas anyway, so he might struggle a decent amount if that does show up. If the meta continues as it is, though, I think more people are going to start picking him up, more people are going to get better as him, and he, again, kind of like Reaper, works pretty well with Brigitte because she can apply a stun, which then he can use to get a kill, and she can put some armor on him, which just overall helps a lot of flankers by making them a lot harder to kill. Moving on to the other flanker, that being Genji, just a little bit below this guy, but we do have a lot more Genji players, so generally when the player rate increases, the win rate decreases, so kind of makes sense. Genji's been doing alright, and honestly he's doing better than I thought he'd be doing in competitive. Overall, Genji, I think, is a character that most people are kind of used to now. A lot less people are playing him now than they used to, so I guess that is kind of a bad thing about him, if you take it that way. But I think that he's still an alright character. With a similar problem to Doomfist, though, which is that if we do get into a more tanky meta, Genji really can't do anything. And especially with Brigitte, who just has a way to shut down Genji, honestly, that is very hard to deal with, and it's very hard for any of the flankers to deal with. And I think Genji, getting all these new characters that are good versus him, that being like Sombra, Moira, any of the new characters, honestly, any of the DLC characters, it is making him slightly worse and worse and worse every single patch. With that said, Genji and all the other flankers have always been playable every single patch if you do get extremely good at them. They always have a good amount of outplay potential and can always be useful, but I think he's going to be slightly less useful on average than he used to be. PHARAH is weird because she should, on paper, be just god tier against so many comps right now because we don't see way too many hit scan. But I think the problem about PHARAH is that, you know, if you do have a single hit scan, I mean, they can just completely shut you down. But as well, her damage just isn't so high that it can just completely wreck a game. While if you can get a few key great shots, you can get some picks and win that match. Overall, it seems like PHARAH just kind of has a big struggle keeping up with a lot of the other DPS and keeping up with the positioning of other DPS. And overall, even if there has been, you know, a tank comp in the past, she hasn't really been able to deal enough damage to stop the tanks from doing anything. I think PHARAH as well does really good against Brigitte, but I mean, she does well versus a lot of heroes. That doesn't necessarily mean that she's going to be all that great. Even if Brigitte does become meta, I mean, she's about as good against PHARAH as all the other supports, and really all you need again to do is just get a hit scan. If hit scan does become better, I think that PHARAH is going to become a little bit weaker, but actually PHARAH might become a bit stronger because hit scan has really been falling down the toilet quite a bit, which is something you're going to be seeing in the next few characters. So to Mei, she got another buff, similarly to Reaper, is doing a little bit worse than him, but it makes sense because, you know, she is a very situational character, and actually right now, she, I think, is in a good state. Now she can multi-freeze people and can fit in a lot more comps, which is actually pretty good. I don't think she's overpowered by any means, and I don't think Brigitte is going to really change way too much about her. She works okay in the meta right now, and I hope that's how it continues, and that's really all I have to say about Mei because I don't play her way too much. So Tracer's always weird because technically she is pretty much always the best hero in the entire game almost every single patch on paper, but when you look at win rates, people in competitive really can't pull that much out of her. And right here, yeah, she's on one of the bottom ends of characters in competitive. She got a pretty big nerf, of course, just barely, where she only does 300 damage instead of 400 on her pulse bomb. But honestly, I don't think that's going to do much for most players. It's only really going to hurt esports because in a lot of games, especially below like Grandmaster, people are hitting those bombs way too much anyways, or comboing way too much with them anyways. So I think in general, she's going to be playing good enough, but honestly, she might even be a little bit harder to play now because, you know, you do have to hit better bombs. As well with that, I do want to mention the fact that, again, like the other flankers, she works well with Brigitte because the armor works well on her, but also she kind of gets countered by her. I think, though, that Tracer actually doesn't get countered that hard by Brigitte because if you position well, you can just position outside of the range of her shield bash, and she can never do anything against you. It does mean that you have one target that you can't go for, but I think that's something a lot of people kind of forget about that will keep Tracer pretty relevant compared to a lot of the other flankers that are kind of going down a little bit. Now, from this point on, I'm going to go pretty quickly. Most of the people at the bottom of the rankings right now as far as meta goes are hit scan, and essentially why that is, I think, is because dive is kind of shutting them down, while as well, they've just kind of been pushed aside from a lot of projectile characters. And also, there's just a lot of healing that just outdoes a lot of the hit scan, which kind of makes it hard to do just about anything, and characters like Brigitte really aren't helping much with that. With armor, that really does shred hit scan's damage because, you know, they do a lot of hits, and armor blocks a lot of hits, so that's kind of case with that. and why a lot of these characters I think are not doing the best right now. Now, the first character that's not doing the best is Soldier, and while Soldier is still doing okay compared to a lot of these other characters, I mean, he's not doing amazing. He still does a decent amount of damage, he still can fit most team comps, but there's nothing super special about him right now. I think that almost no matter what the meta is, Soldier will always be a somewhat viable pick, but don't expect anything too special about him right now. Next, and something I have to remember to mention, is that there's actually like 3 good tanks in the game right now, that being Orisa, Reinhardt, and D.Va, while the rest of the tanks are actually, statistically speaking, doing quite horrible, so I hope they somewhat change and maybe a tank meta will help that. But the first tank that's not doing that great is ROADHOG, and ROADHOG has actually been played a good amount. ROADHOG can still do a good amount of damage, and ROADHOG still has a good amount of self-sustain. He's on the lower end of the meta, but not that bad, and you still can do some stuff with him. I think if a tank meta emerges, ROADHOG will be able to play up in the front line, be able to do what he's always been able to do in tank metas, survive for forever, so that'll be good about him. And especially not having much hit scan, which traditionally could kind of annoy him quite a bit, I think that's going to be even a little bit better. But the problem is that we have quite a few tank shredders showing up right now, that being Reaper, somewhat Doomfist, Tracer a little bit, and of course having Junkrat. That can all kind of hurt ROADHOG, and especially not having any armor compared to a lot of the other armored characters, you know, that might be one of the reasons why we don't see him played way too much. So for Bastion, he just has a extremely small play rate. There's a few players that like to play him quite a bit, and that's why his win rate isn't that bad. I mean, he can still do okay if you get really good as him, but Bastion's kit has just been quite unique. And again, like in every previous season, I'd say you don't really want to play him unless you're a player that just wants to play Bastion. He does do well against BRIGITTE, so I guess that's kind of a nice thing. But against even just triple tank comps, they can just dive straight onto him. He can't really do much against that. Yeah, that kind of hurts as a Bastion player. Now, moving on to Winston, I was actually expecting him to do quite a bit better, because in top elo, you still see dive very often. I mean, it shows up so many games that you watch. But I think the problem is that in lower elo, dive just doesn't really work quite too much anymore. It's very hard to pull off compared to just playing, you know, just kind of a regular 2-2-2, honestly, a slower push 2-2-2. Not super slow, but somewhat slow. And I think that honestly is why Winston is, you know, dying out a little bit. Of course, you still can play him if you need to, and you still can play dive if you really want to, but I think especially with the addition of BRIGITTE, it's probably going to become a little bit weaker, and you probably just want to play one of the other tanks right now, especially for a person that doesn't really like dive way too much in the first place. So looking at this statistic with WIDOWMAKER has been kind of pissing me off, because we're seeing a lot more WIDOWMAKERs, but WIDOWMAKER hasn't actually gotten like that much higher of a win rate at all. I think the reason why we're seeing so many more now is that there's been a lot of her showing up in the Overwatch League. We can see exactly what she can do, and a lot of people have been wanting to pick her up and climb with that. But honestly, if you're a player that wants to win, picking up WIDOWMAKER probably isn't the best. She wasn't the best against dive unless you were amazing. Against triple tanks, she's even worse. And even a regular 2-2-2 comp, she's only alright against. Overall, with WIDOWMAKER, it's kind of been as it's always been. You should only really play her if you're amazing as her or a smurf. And for most players, I'd say you probably want to play Soldier if you really want to play hitscan. Moving on to Zarya, she's just been bad for a long time. She never really fit into dive. She never really fit way too well into the triple tank that we had at least last time. She didn't really fit way too well into spam or mercy meta. She just hasn't fit into much for quite a while now, and overall she feels quite weak. Even when playing triple tank, you don't see her that much. Most of the time you're actually seeing more ROADHOG, more D.Va, more Orisa, a lot more Reinhardt. And you don't even see that much Reinhardt Zarya anymore, again, because I just think that it takes way too long to charge up Zarya's ultimate. And that is the important part of her kit. It's a little bit too hard to get up charged with her as well. A lot of players are just getting better at not shooting her shields, and I think that is a big problem about her. Overall, I hope that she gets something added to her, and hope that something is changed about her, but yeah, she's just not doing that well. Speaking of a character that's not doing that well, that just surprised me, MCCREE is just doing worse and worse and worse. And yes, we do still see him a decent amount in the Overwatch League, and again, if you are extremely good as him, like WIDOWMAKER, you can pull off some stuff with him. But overall hit scan has just been having problems for a while now, and MCCREE is a good example of that. Him and Soldier aren't doing that great. And usually how it is in the meta is that one of them is good while the other one is bad, but right about now, one of them is okay, that being Soldier, while MCCREE just isn't doing that much. MCCREE's damage just doesn't seem to be as good compared to other characters. MCCREE's burst potential isn't that high, and overall, while MCCREE can be alright against Tracer and alright against people like Reaper and Doomfist, in a lot of cases, right now, it would probably actually be better just to put a Brigitte on your team to protect your backline and then play a better DPS instead of MCCREE. Again, I like MCCREE, I hope it becomes a little bit better, but I don't really see anything in the meta that's actually going to pick him up way too much coming soon. Now, Ana's another character that I want to see her do better. I really want to see her do something. But even in triple tank, which was her meta when she was really good, I mean, there's more right now that can do her job. And overall, that kind of feels like what it is. Ana doesn't do enough healing. Ana doesn't do enough damage. Ana doesn't have enough consistent crowd control. Ana's ultimate isn't strong enough to really warrant to pick her. There's no real big reason to pick Ana at all right now, which kind of sucks. I really hope that Ana gets something new, because any way I spin it, there's just nothing super special about her anymore. And I hope that there will be something soon. Now, talking about Sombra, she actually has such a high win rate in high elo, and I guess I should also say a WIDOWMAKER is a pretty good winner in high elo, Tracer has a good win rate in high elo, and people like, Moira have a little bit higher winner in high elo, I should mention that, and Winston, should mention all that. But especially someone with Sombra, I mean, she's one of the better characters in high elo, but when you look at lower elo, it just drags her down so much. Even though Sombra is strong, and even though people can play her if they get used to her, in general, it's still just hard to play this character. And honestly, I think Sombra's kind of weird, because I think she's in a pretty good, balanced state, but as far as statistics, I mean, for most players, she kind of isn't. I think what really could fix this is that if they would have just made her kit make a little bit more sense, maybe make so that when you hack people, you do more damage to them, maybe just increase her damage, make her more like other DPS, and while I guess that would kind of remove some of what is Sombra, it might make her, I guess, more usable. Now, another thing about her is, of course, that, overall, again, hit scan hasn't been doing way too well. She's always been one of the, least damaging hit scan, and I think that's another problem about her. Overall, Sombra, I actually think, is a half-decent character, but if you aren't that great as her already, you probably should pick her up for a free win anytime soon. And finally, we have the Hanzo rework, which I talked about in an entire video yesterday. You can go check that out if you want to. Hanzo has always been a somewhat popular character, considering that he has been the worst character in the game for almost every single meta for like 2 entire years. But his new rework is making him a lot more consistent. His new rework is allowing him to do a lot more against tanks. His new rework is allowing him to do a lot more against flankers. It's going to make him better at long range. And I think overall, I'm guessing the Hanzo is going to become a more mid-tier type character, especially since projectiles are actually doing quite well right now. Now, I don't think Hanzo's going to become an extremely broken pick. I think there's still a lot of people and a lot of characters that you can play against him, especially Dive. There's not much you can do against that. But I think that he is finally going to actually come out of the ghetto of Hanzo-dom. I don't know what you want to call it. Hanzo's just been down there for so long, and I'm really glad that they're finally changing him up. And I'm excited to see what Hanzo can do next season. I hope that he doesn't become broken, because there is the potential that that happens. But I guess even if that does happen, I mean, he's a pretty easy character to nerf now. All you have to do is make so that his E does less damage, and I think that's pretty cool. Now, I should mention right here that I think that the Lucio changes are not going to change it way too much. I forgot to mention that. I think with his little mini rework of wall riding, is going to essentially stay about the same place where he was before. Maybe be a little bit easier to use, but maybe have a slightly lower skill cap. That's a change. And as well with that, the Genji Deflect will make him a little bit worse. I forgot about that, but that should be kept in mind, so he might become even a little bit worse than where he was already going, which kind of does suck. But anyways, as always, guys, this had just been my own kind of predictions about the next season. There's no way to say for sure what's going to happen, because it's impossible, but you can make very educated guesses about what's going to happen. So I guess here's my big hypothesis for the next meta, and trying to guide you guys along why I think every character is where they are. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you did, I guess make sure to leave a like. Comment down below if you think your character is going to be stronger or weaker in this next season, and why, or what meta you think is going to pop up, because I'm guessing that we're probably going to see a okay amount of triple tank now, but mainly a more regular 2-2-2 comp, or maybe even a like 1-2-3 comp. I think that could all happen, but those are just my own opinions, and I'd really like to hear yours. Anyways, as always, guys, though, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a wonderful day.